I have a fear of spiders that I think that I got from my dad, right? But what's been happening lately is I tend to stop, pause in the moment, take a look at the spider, take pictures of it, try to understand it, try to research them. As I learn more and as I face the fear more, I'm
Mhm.
actually becoming more fascinated. Like, what's happening here when we have these fears,
So,
and
yeah.
then how do we get over these fears if we can?
So this is called cognitive behavioral therapy when it's done on purpose to you. And basically what it says is you are progressively introduced to something that scares the bejesus out of you to the point where you can actually physically contact a spider or fly on the plane or whatever and not have something bad happen. So the
Hmm.
bad with the spiders in your brain right now is imagined. I presume you've never been bitten to death by a spider, or
I have
probably
not.
or probably even bitten and harmed by a spider, because that rarely happens, even that, right? So
Yeah.
it's imagined, right? So if you can encounter the stimulus that you're afraid of without it harming you, your brain learns that sometimes this isn't negative. And it literally adds to your um, instant subconscious inputs about that stimulus. So it's called cognitive behavioral therapy. There are brilliant experiments in this, by the way, that have studied the brain chemistry of this to the point where there's actually a drug now. I don't think it's in human trials yet, but it has been found in mouse tests to erase fears. So what they do is they expose the mouse to a scary stimulus, and it doesn't harm them. Sometimes it's the rat in the cage with the electrical wire floor thing, and it doesn't harm them. So they've learned it's not negative, and then they're given this drug. And if they're given the drug within a certain time window, I forget what it is, um, the next day when the bell rings that they had learned to be afraid of, because after that the floor was going to shock, they don't jump. They've forgotten the fear.
Hmm.
In your case, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. And we
Hmm.
can do this with ourselves. Um, I urge you to go online and look for, I think it was a Danish or possibly a Swedish researcher who was helping people who were paranoid about cats in one case and spiders in another,
Hmm.
and used this drug in advance. I think she exposed them to the stimulus in a room. Oh, and they were sweating. Oh, they were sweating. Oh, these poor people, you see them online. I don't need that. She has to drag them in the room, and they're like way on the other side of the room, and the cat is just sitting in the other corner, right? Or the spider's on a little table, and they're dying. But they take them out of the room. See, it didn't hurt you. They take them in this other room, and they could use this drug because it was approved for something else. And they take him back in the room, and the guy wants the spider to crawl all over him.
Yeah. Wow.
Out, man. Look up the
Yeah.
video. Get some
Yeah.
of that drug at your chemist and see how it goes. We can. The point of this fun thing is we can unlearn some fears if they're in us for deeper psychological reasons. I don't know what your dad did to you with the spiders, right? We're not going to go there. That's a different thing altogether. But the general fears we have of common things, spiders, the dark, heights, social rejection. The biggest fear that
Hmm.
most people have isn't physical, it's public speaking. And the reason for that is if you stand up there and they don't like you, the tribe's rejecting you and you are unsafe.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? Or if a friend doesn't like you, a mate doesn't like you, if you get fired, if a partner doesn't reject you, that's social rejection makes you unsafe. And we have on the list of what we're afraid of, there's the physical ones and the social ones, and the social ones are higher up. We're more afraid of them, but you can learn to get over that too with cognitive behavioral therapy, as you're working on
Yeah.
informally with spiders.
And yeah, that's brilliant. And I have to bring this up at the moment
Yeah, go ahead.
because Donald Robertson literally wrote a book about stoicism and cognitive behavioral therapy, right?
Oh, geez.
So
Oh, well, hello,
so
boy.
so so
Rock one.
this is why I'm so glad that I brought someone like you on, because I think that people from different disciplines, what we can find is major connections between philosophies and science and all of these different understandings that we have now, like Donald Robertson has done here, basically saying, listen, all of this cognitive behavioral therapy, this comes directly from a 2,000-year-old philosophy, right? About the fact that, hey, like, face the things that you are afraid of, they will become easier for you to deal with. And so,
I'm often at times like this. Pardon my interruption. I'm often at times like this reminded of the book, the title of which "Everything I Needed to Know in Life I Learned in Kindergarten."
yeah,
You heard of that book?
I have not heard of it. No.
Okay. It basically says the basics are obvious.
Mm.
The basics are obvious. So what the philosophers did, in many cases, is express those basics in grand philosophical terms. And here along comes cognitive science and other things that says, yep, they were right. But
Yep.
it really is obvious. When I say that it's more frightening, risk is more frightening when we don't have control, you don't need some scientist or some journalist to tell you that. It's like, duh,
Yeah.
right? It is pretty, a lot of this is pretty obvious. The philosophers crystallized it conceptually for us. The evidence confirms it. And it is brilliantly interconnected. It's all part of who we are, and siloing it away is, that's for academics and book writers, to have their own
Yeah.
fields.